True self-esteem is not swayed by whether someone reacts good to you or not. That's true self-esteem. But ego is. 30 seconds to a minute of talking to her, he tells her, I bet you have a flappy p. All of a sudden she goes bam onto Alex. This is why so many guys, after spending a long time just focusing on the technical side of, say, the pickup industry, they end up needing to be essentially rehabbed because it them up internally, then it's probably a good indicator that she doesn't like it that much, or she's incredibly selfish, which is another massive red flag. This heavy energy usually is your ego. It's your desire to elicit certain reactions from people and try to suck validation from others. Because this person gave me a bad reaction, that means that piles onto all the evidence that I've picked up throughout my life that I am unworthy. That's just going to perpetuate your cycle of validation seeking and make you more insecure and weed your genetics out of the gene pool, my friend. This is what's going to be most likely to have you have the result that you want with women. Like, this is more likely to make you magnetic to women. Some people aren't gonna like you, and that's fine. Are you a validation? Do you find yourself freezing up when you see a woman that you want to talk to? You spend the next 5 minutes just psyching yourself up, thinking about the perfect thing to say, only to end up walking away and convincing yourself that, oh, she wasn't actually hot enough, or she probably had a boyfriend anyway. Do you find yourself having wild fluctuations in your emotional state when you're talking to women? For example, if she responds poorly to you, all of a sudden you get hot in the face. You run out of things to say, and it almost feels like you're socially drowning. But if she responds positively to you, all of a sudden you feel elated, like you had this huge dopamine rush, like you're a king, like you're on top of the world. Or maybe you find yourself bouncing out of interactions prematurely. You get a couple of good reactions from a girl, and all of a sudden you think, I'm probably gonna this up. I want to leave the interaction before she potentially has a negative view of me, because I would prefer to get good reactions and leave feeling good about myself than potentially create a connection with this girl, because you care more about the validation you're getting from her than actually meeting and connecting with people. If any of this sounds like you, then you're probably validation seeking. Craving approval from others, much like an OnlyFans model craves approval from her father. Validation seeking is like poison to attraction. It's an unconscious behavior that men are exhibiting that they don't realize is pushing women away. In this video, I'm going to talk about why validation seeking is so common in men, where it comes from, how it ultimately affects our dating lives, and why it is so unattractive to women, and also ultimately how to overcome this drying mindset and become the most attractive version of yourself. Stick around, let's get into it. So let's start with where our validation seeking behavior comes from. Firstly, and primarily, it is from unresolved childhood trauma. So if you were, say, to have a parent who was hypercritical, so nothing you did was ever good enough, or they were emotionally unavailable, or you dealt with a lot of negative social feedback from your peers at a young age, this causes you to learn that the only way to achieve approval from those around you is to put their needs above your own. And this causes us to become people pleasing. Now, how does this affect us when we become adults? Well, it causes us to, one, put others' needs before our own, and also become people pleasers. We tend to put the women that we meet on a pedestal, and women are instantly turned off by men who tend to put them on a pedestal or put everyone else's needs above their own. Now, when I say this, I don't mean you need to become a narcissistic asshole who doesn't think about anyone else. What I am talking about is an unhealthy, deep-seated belief in yourself that the only way that you can achieve approval from others or be accepted by others in a social environment, or for you to be worthy of love and acceptance, is by putting their needs before their own and always doing everything you can in order to please them. Now, the next point is low self-esteem and lacking self-trust. Now, the way this affects us is that when we lack self-trust, we're always looking externally for approval as to whether what we're doing is right or wrong. And this causes us to be incredibly unsure of ourselves. When you're talking to a woman, for instance, it comes out like this. I call it a flinch. After you say something, you almost have this moment of like, did you like that? Do you like that? Is that good enough? Was that good enough? And then when you finally, it's this energy that you're giving off when you say something, you're like, did you like it? Please give me the validation. Then as soon as they give you a positive reassurance, you're like, oh, thank God. Essentially, taking value in your social environments. You're always taking, because everything you say is being said in order to gain approval from others. And the way you're expressing yourself and acting is how you believe they want you to act. So this in itself, this lack of self-trust, is essentially the cornerstone of lacking confidence, because you do not have that trust in yourself to express yourself authentically and actually show people who you truly are. You're always trying to be approved of. You're always looking externally as to how you should view yourself. This also makes people quite emotionally volatile as well, because when people give them good or bad reactions, this then tells them how they should think about themselves too, or how they should see themselves. They're always looking to others as to how they should view their own value in themselves. When women feel someone just seeking their approval, it's just instantly a huge turnoff. So guys, if you notice yourself doing this, just be aware of it. Again, it's not your fault that you're doing it. It's an unconscious behavior. No one wants to be approval seeking. No one wants to be less desirable. No one wants to take value in social environments, but it's something we need to kind of take a step back, look at ourselves and go, okay, is this what's causing my lack of self-confidence? And this is something I dealt with for years, is just this deep-seated lack of self-trust and always thinking that other people knew better or other people had a more solid view of reality. And I just didn't trust my own beliefs, and I preferred to take on other people's view of reality instead of my own. And I had to learn over time to trust myself more, and this then allowed myself to start expressing myself more authentically as well. Now, I'll get into this a little bit deeper later in this video too, but essentially you looking externally for approval, looking externally for how you should view reality and how you should view yourself is the cornerstone of lacking confidence. The next one is societal conditioning. So we're taught in our current society that we need to live a certain way or be a certain type of person, have a certain type of woman in order to, say, be approved of. And we're all trying to fit in. Ironically, the more we try to fit in, the more we lose our individuality, and this actually ironically makes us less likable. But I want to talk about this from more of a dating context, and I want to share with you my own experience with how societal conditioning really affected me. So when I was younger, I never really got that kind of classically high school hot girl kind of girl, the really popular one who everyone wanted to be with. Right? I never really got with that kind of girl. And I always saw the guys who were the ones who had the most social status, etc., were the ones who were able to get those kind of girls. And I never felt like I had that experience. Now, because of that, I had a certain deep craving in me to have that kind of girl so I could be more accepted by society. Now, after working on my dating life for quite a while and having a lot of experiences with this archetype of girl, this classically beautiful, like society's classic standard of exactly what beauty looks like, I realized that I wasn't as into this archetype of woman as I thought I was. I thought that this is what I wanted really deep down. I found myself far more drawn towards women who were a little bit more nerdy. I have a personal type, right? I have an exact physical type, which is much more soft, cute features. I much prefer cute features than the more sharper features that you see on magazines, etc., or on IG, right? I'm very attracted to very cute features, soft features, pale skin, dark hair, and very curvaceous figures. You might have seen it if you follow me on Facebook. You've probably seen the type that I'm attracted to on my stories, but that is a type that I have, and some of my friends even give me shit because I'm attracted to quite an accentuated feminine shape, but I never used to express that to people because I was afraid of judgment from others. And I've noticed over time, after learning this lesson myself, the guys who go for girls with the really high amount of Instagram followers and looking for girls with a bit of clout who are highly validated, the guys who really care about being seen with a certain type of girl, these guys tend to be the ones who are also looking for approval from others as well. And I believe that this comes from the same place. It's that they felt that they never had that kind of girl when they were younger, and they saw the guys who had status and stuff had this type of girl, and they want to meet society's standard of success. And this is one of those standards that they put on us. Guys, society also affects us when it comes to how we view reality and how we seek approval from others too. This is a big one. I thought I wanted this archetype of girl, this classically highly validated type of girl, but after having many experiences with these kind of girls, I realized that I didn't really enjoy their personalities nearly as much as I did with cute girls who are a little bit more nerdy, because we resonated a bit more, because personally I am a little bit more of a nerd. I like these kind of people more, and I'm more attracted to girls who are more cute. That is what I prefer, and that's okay if you prefer something. You need to own it, but also be aware of, are you going for this girl because society will approve of that, or because you genuinely want her? And also, you need to always come from the mindset of, do I like this person? This is a very attractive mindset, but when we're coming from an approval-seeking state, we sometimes look past their personality traits in order to gain their approval, in order to get with that girl, because we want to be approved of by her, by society, whatever it might be. So guys, be aware of this. Those are the three main reasons why men become validation seekers: childhood trauma, lack of self-trust and low self-esteem, societal conditioning. Now let's get into how being validation seeking affects your dating life and ruins your chances with women. Number one, crippling approach anxiety. Because you're looking externally as to how you should think about yourself and feel about yourself, you take on people's opinions and judgments far more than the average person. And because of this, approach anxiety can be absolutely crippling, because the idea of being rejected is scary. If you were to be rejected, this would then give you more evidence to the fact that you are unworthy, unlovable, whatever it might be that you're afraid of being. Again, this comes from you worrying so much and looking so externally for others' validation. So when you are rejected, this does hurt a lot more and makes you far more likely to take inaction. Super common. If you're someone who's highly validation seeking, you're also far more likely to make excuses like, oh, she wasn't actually that hot. Oh, I think she had a boyfriend. I think I saw her look at another dude. So yeah, she's not gonna be interested. Oh, she had a bit of a mark here. You know how I feel about girls with marks. You're far more likely to make excuses, and that's to keep your ego safe. Being rejected could potentially give you more evidence to the fact that you are inherently unworthy. And this is so scary to us. So having crippling approach anxiety, like the kind of approach anxiety that you just can't push past, like for instance, you see other people around you and you're just like, other people are gonna think this about me. What if this person sees me? What if someone says this? We just create these crazy ideas in our heads, these crazy scenarios that are just not ever gonna happen. I always know someone's a heavy validation seeker when they go, what if the cops get called on me? It's like, brother, brother, calm down. I've done this since 2015. That's 10 years. I've been doing this a decade. I have never, not once, ever seen the police get involved in a single cold approach. And this is me having coach some people who are pretty socially uncalibrated. Now, obviously with coaching, this makes you more socially calibrated and helps you deal with a lot less rejection a lot quicker, because when you're starting, that's the time you're gonna deal with the most rejection. So this is why most people give up, because they deal with a little bit of rejection. They're like, this is I can't handle this. And they go back to their basement and continue jacking off to midget. But I digress. The only reason why I know that, I love me some midget, especially the hunchback kind. Speak of societal conditioning. Now, the next way that your validation seeking is destroying your love life is it makes you become very needy. You are treating her approval almost like it is oxygen, like you need it. You need her in order to feel whole, in order to feel fulfilled, in order to feel worthy. Whether it's her positive reactions that are gonna make you feel worthy and make you feel good, whether it's hooking up with her, either way, she can feel it. Women can feel neediness from a mile away. And how does it come up in your interactions? It comes through behaviors such as you aggressively filling conversational voids as soon as they pop up, you running out of things to say because you're trying to think of the perfect thing to say all the time in order to impress her, you going far out of your way and brag to her in order to impress her and overcompensate because you feel deep down that you're not worthy and you are looking at this woman as a potential means to fill the void inside of you. Well, again, this is a massive turnoff for girls. It also comes through potentially making you more likely to express your love and affection to a girl before they're ready to commit to you, or even fantasizing about a future with a woman that you barely know, or maybe over texting her, sending her huge messages to her one sentence replies. These are all massive indicators that you are seeking this girl's validation, that you are needy. This is going to repel women. Now, just from a conversational standpoint, it's incredibly important in order to have a great flowing conversation for you to be quite present and listen to the person in front of you. However, if you are just in your head trying too hard to think of the next thing to say, this is one of the most common reasons why guys will up their interactions and their conversations and why they run out of things to say. So detaching from your need to get validation from this person, or detaching your need to have good reactions from this person, can hugely benefit the quality of your conversations. Now, I've also created an entire video on exactly how to have high quality conversations. I'm going to link it right there. Hopefully I remember to link the video here, but it is incredibly useful for those guys who want to level up their ability to have high quality conversations. Let's keep going. Number 3, validation seeking makes you more emotionally volatile and less grounded. Now, women themselves are more emotionally reactive than men are. They definitely see the world a lot more through their emotions, to the point that some women, and you may have experienced this yourself when you've dated highly emotional girls, it's almost like their emotions exist in the real world. Now, us as men, we have an easier time disconnecting our emotions from reality. And the thing is, when we're dating women, a lot of the time women are looking to us to be their rock, to be the one who is always emotionally solid and stable. And this is essentially the meaning of being grounded. It's when you're not emotionally swayed by the going-ons around you. One of my favorite examples, and I think this is from The Natural by RSD Max back in the day, I think the example used was, you're a lighthouse in a wild storm. And another one I heard, I think it's from Mystery Method back in the day, was, you want to be the oak tree and she is the squirrel. Now, when a man is grounded and he's not really emotionally affected by the world around him, it's highly attractive. Women can't help but be like, oh shit, this guy has confidence, because he's not looking externally for validation or how he should view the reality. He truly does trust himself and he truly owns who he is. This makes someone a lot more authentic when they are coming from this place as well. And it just shows a lot of confidence at the same time. When someone is always looking externally for validation, their emotions are always going up and down, depending on what's going on around them or how women are reacting to them. So from a strictly cold approach perspective, you are just finding your emotions being swayed up and down depending on how a girl is reacting to you. If she reacts well to you, your emotions are through the roof. If she reacts negatively to you, all of a sudden you've gone on a downward spiral. You're gonna go home and cry about it. This in itself is highly unattractive, and if you think about it from a certain way, this is somewhat of a feminine trait, and that's why women are not attracted to men who are not emotionally grounded. If a man is highly emotionally volatile, this tends to be a massive turnoff to women. So if you do find yourself having your emotions swayed crazily like a plastic bag in the wind, shout out to my girl Katy Perry, you are going to find yourself, in terms of cold approach, it's going to be a way more difficult experience, but also you're just going to come across far less masculine, far less attractive to the women that you're meeting. And not that you should learn to be more emotionally stable and solid and grounded just to get women, but the endeavor in order to achieve success with women can sometimes be the one motivating catalyst that men need in order to achieve this level of self-development themselves. So again, it's why I actually love cold approach so much, because for me, I didn't realize I was so validation seeking, and so emotionally volatile until I started to do cold approach, and I noticed myself just having these crazy swings in emotional state when I'd go out, and it took a lot of practice and desensitization to get to a point where I built that internal confidence that isn't changed or affected too much by my external circumstances. Now, don't get me wrong, we're all human beings, and it is okay to have your emotions swayed a little by external circumstances. But if you notice yourself having huge shifts in your emotional states, for example, if a girl makes one single, maybe half judgmental comment and all of a sudden your night is ruined, that's a good indicator that you're probably way too validation seeking and emotionally volatile. And this is the exact video that you should be watching, my friend. And again, we're gonna get into how to deal with that soon. So that is being emotionally volatile. The next way it ruins your dating life is you ignore red flags and major issues that girls express to you. You're so worried about getting people to like you all the time, you're not actually assessing the women that you're meeting as to whether they're gonna make a good partner for you in the long run. And this really does tie in heavily to society's conditioning as well. A lot of guys will just disregard that a girl is disrespecting them, is using them for their resources, etc., in order to get validation from others and be seen with a certain type of girl. If you're someone who has found yourself in a situation multiple times where girls say are using you for your resources, then there's a good indicator that you are one of these people who is ignoring red flags and you care far more about getting validation than the quality of your relationships. Because someone who genuinely cared deeply about the quality of their relationships more so than getting validation from external sources would really take a step back and think, okay, what are the personality traits in this woman that I need to avoid in my next relationship? Or what are the red flags that I should be avoiding? For example, if she's quite dismissive of you and doesn't really care about your emotions and your happiness, then it's probably a good indicator that she doesn't like you that much. Or she's incredibly selfish, which is another massive red flag. So brother, there is definitely fault on both sides. However, if you find yourself in multiple dysfunctional relationships in a row, then you need to actually look at yourself and go, what am I doing that is attracting this archetype of woman, and what have I missed? What am I missing here? Because there is something that I am not looking at or seeing in myself. Fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice and use me as a personal bank account, then shame on me, because that is actually your fault if you allowed it to keep happening. So just letting you know, don't ignore red flags just so you can get a certain archetype of girl or just so you can impress other people. You need to be assessing people that you meet as to whether they meet your standards. Stop trying so hard to get a certain physical appearance archetype of girl and start looking at her personality traits and her character traits, and that's going to give you the best indicator as to whether she's going to be a long-term good relationship, because let's face it, beauty is temporary. The next way that this destroys your ability to attract women is it makes you overthink everything. You overanalyze, you overthink, you're trying to always say and do the perfect thing. When a woman can feel that you're trying really hard in order to do the right thing and say the right shit, she gets uncomfortable and she wants to remove herself from the interaction. You'll probably notice if you get a lot of girls like looking around, looking kind of uncomfortable, looking at their phone, not really giving you much, then there's a good indicator that you're just trying way too hard. Now, obviously there's a vast array of different potential behaviors you're exhibiting that are eliciting these reactions from women. However, this is one of them. The next way that this makes you unattractive is you put women on a pedestal. You see her as almost like this perfect being, this deity, and as yourself as this mortal, and you are just worshiping this woman. And this makes you blind to her flaws and unable to see and assess her personality in an objective manner. It also ties heavily into those people-pleasing tendencies I talked about earlier, how you'll always put others' needs above your own and see others as higher in the social hierarchy than you are. You want to make sure that you're not blind to people's flaws. Remember, she is a human being and women want to be seen as human beings. Every hot girl has had the experience of meeting a guy and him just seeing her as this perfect being. But the thing is, if she is being validated so highly on something that she didn't accomplish, for example, her being blessed with good physical genetic appearance, she doesn't see that as something highly important herself because she didn't achieve it. And the thing is, most guys, when they meet a highly beautiful woman, they're just enamored by her beauty. And again, this is something she didn't do anything to achieve. So she just thinks that every guy who puts her on a pedestal and sees her as this perfect being and can't see her flaws because they're so blind to her beauty, she just disrespects the out of them. Now, another way this can be insidious to relationships is it turns you into a little bitch. You're not going to challenge her. She's going to push your boundaries, and over time, she is not going to respect you if you continuously are always trying to build rapport. Now, I'm not saying set boundaries on anything, but again, if she is pushing your boundaries over and over again, it is okay to stand up for yourself. In fact, she's going to respect you more. Now, also make sure that if she does have certain opinions and stuff that you don't agree with, it's okay to disagree. It's okay to challenge. It's attractive. Don't be a pussy. That is the most important thing here. Lastly, you become a social chameleon. You change your personality in her presence in order to only express the parts of you that you think she will approve of. For example, she says she loves hiking and you're like, yo, love hiking, it's my favorite thing, and you pretend to love hiking way more than you actually do just because you believe that this will make her like you more, where in fact you actually much prefer to sit at home, play COD, and teabag noobs. In that case, you're being inauthentic, my friend. You are lying. You're being a social chameleon, and this makes you come across as inauthentic. It's just like if she has a certain political opinion and then you pretend to have the exact same political opinion just because you think it'll impress her. This, in fact, is actually doing the opposite. Women like a man who is not afraid to question them, who is not afraid to disagree. This shows that you have personality, and the more you hide parts of your personality away from people, the more it's going to reinforce this feeling inside you that you aren't enough, that the real you is not valuable, attractive, desirable, etc. So watch out for this. This is incredibly insidious. And this is a really common issue with guys because they're often afraid to even share their true sense of humor because they're afraid of potentially offending her, and all they're doing is trying to build rapport and get her to like them. The funny part is, if they were to share their true, authentic personality, their actual sense of humor, they were far more likely to build attraction with her anyway. I'll never forget, and this is a really up point, but I remember one of my clients, this is on the Gold Coast, goes up to this American girl and he goes, hey, how's it going? She's like, oh, hey, and they're having a quick chat, and he's like, oh, where are you from, by the way? She's like, America. He's like, oh, that's perfect. I hate Mexicans too, right? That is a dark joke, but the thing is, that was the moment when he showed his dark sense of humor. Now that's risky, right? But that was the moment that after he showed her his dark sense of humor, all of a sudden this girl flips and she's like, holy that's so funny. And all of a sudden this girl cannot take her eyes off him. She is so attractive. She doesn't notice anything else. She's like, I really like this guy, because he wasn't afraid to show his true sense of humor. Now, again, that was risky, and that is something that will get you blown out of a lot of interactions, 100%. Sure, it absolutely will. But again, he wasn't afraid to show his real sense of humor, and that means that he's going to bring in the kind of people that are going to love him, but he's going to repel the kind of people who are going to hate him, but he's not afraid to express himself honestly and authentically. That is highly attractive. Someone who's not afraid to share the more jagged parts of their personality. That is a good thing. Someone who's not afraid to offend because they have a really dark sense of humor. That is attractive. Don't hide parts of your personality away. You should lead with those parts of your personality, because the sooner you let people know what kind of person you are, the sooner you can find out whether you're going to get along with that person or not. Now, going even deeper into this inauthenticity side of things, this social chameleon side of things, I notice a lot of guys, and this is really related to the dating industry, the pickup industry. After working with so many clients now, I've seen so many times guys will try, in order to avoid learning how to express themselves and be authentic, because this is a vulnerable thing, right? For you to go out and really express your true personality, if you're someone who is highly validation seeking, being rejected after showing your true personality, your true authentic sense of humor, can hurt a lot more. And a lot of guys put on a mask when they're out interacting with women. And I'll get into how you can really assess whether you're putting on a mask in a moment. But A lot of guys, they put on a mask and they hide behind a lot of these techniques, like they go out and they do a bunch of push-pulls and DHVs and disqualifiers and prize frames and frame control, etc., in order to try and elicit certain reactions from girls. And the thing is, the reason why the technical skills, like these are emotional spikes is what you would call them, but the reason why the emotional spikes are so attractive to a lot of guys is because it can elicit in a short-term period, it can elicit some positive reactions. And because a lot of guys, what they're looking for is positive reactions, it's really sellable because they're like, oh, yeah, positive reaction, oh, validation, that's what I want. But unfortunately, you are focusing on only getting validation from people. You really are trying to suck as much validation from people as possible. You're going to start relying on these behaviors in order to get good reactions. And the problem is, these are reactions. This is not actual attraction. A lot of the time, your true self will come through. It's almost like if you're someone who is completely inauthentic and you are just trying so hard to get validation from others, it's like you trying to put a band-aid on an amputated arm in order to stop it bleeding. Like, the true self will absolutely bleed through, and all of the techniques in the world will do absolutely nothing if you are doing it for reactions. And a lot of the time, you'll notice guys who have high self-esteem, they will be doing what is technically incorrect a lot of the time. However, they will get far better results than the guy who has really low self-esteem but is hiding behind all of these pickup techniques and tactics, etc., in order to elicit certain reactions from girls. Because it's much easier to learn a couple of social techniques than it is to really put yourself out there and face your fears truly. And the thing is, if you continuously only use techniques, etc., or routines and things like this in order to try build attraction, and worse off, if you start to get a little bit of results with that, which again is going to handicap you in the long run, you then reinforce this feeling that the real version of yourself is not good enough, that the authentic version of you is not good enough. And over time, this will lower your self-esteem more and more and more. And I have so many people who I essentially have to put through like a pickup rehab in order to help them get out of this framework of, I need to use the techniques, it's what makes me worthy. My true self is not good enough. I need to use the techniques, it's the techniques that work. But really, in the end, this girl would have loved them anyway, if not way more, if they had have just been their genuine, authentic selves, expressed themselves a bit more authentically. Now, that being said, there's nothing wrong with, say, using something like a push-pull. If that's part of your sense of humor, that's fine. But if it's coming from a place of you genuinely feeling like you aren't good enough and you have to be doing these things in order to be worthy of good reactions, of validation, etc., then it's only going to reinforce this feeling deep down that's going to lower your self-esteem even more. And this is why so many guys, after spending a long time just focusing on the technical side of, say, the pickup industry, they end up needing to be essentially rehabbed because it them up internally. And a lot of guys end up with issues like erectile dysfunction and self-esteem issues because they just genuinely have not dealt with the internal side of things, which they should have done originally and not tried to mask it with external techniques in the first place. But yeah, that's a bit of a side tangent in terms of the authenticity side of things. But again, becoming a social chameleon, a lot of guys really are attracted to the idea of being able to get anyone to like them, any person they meet, get everyone to like them, become the best social chameleon. But this in itself is actually going to lower someone's self-esteem more in the long run if you're able to get everyone to like you. But ironically, the more authentically you express yourself, the more honest you are in your expression, funny enough, tends to be the best way to be attractive to the highest number of people. So ironically, that is actually going to be the way that will net you the most success in your dating life, in your social life. But there is absolutely and unequivocally going to be some people who are not going to like you, and you have to be totally comfortable with that and embrace it. Some people aren't going to like you. If you ever put yourself out on the internet like YouTube, you'll notice some people just hate you for no reason, just for existing. You for existing, Ben. You, stop breathing. Just for some reason, I don't like you. And you know what? If you don't like me, fair enough, bro. Good luck to you. So I think you're an idiot if you don't like me. That's how I feel about women when I meet them and they don't like my sense of humor. I think, man, you must be low IQ, but that's because that's how I truly believe and think now. But again, I still wish you all the best and hope you have a fantastic life. Love you. Now you've heard about where your validation seeking behavior comes from and how it affects your ability to attract women. And you're probably now thinking, Ben, how the do I get over this? Well, my answer to you is you're give up, you're done, go home. Yeah, it's gonna be a long and lonely life. No, okay, let's get into how you can finally get over your validation seeking tendencies. So the first step in getting over your validation seeking tendencies is, number one, shift your criteria for success. So currently your biggest issue is you are placing your self-worth on external factors that you have very little control over. For example, whether someone responds positively or negatively to an approach. You're essentially energetically going up to someone and saying, hey, complete stranger who doesn't know anything about me, please tell me how I should feel about myself. That is what you're doing on an energetic level. And the first step in stopping this classic validation seeking tendency is taking back control of your criteria for success back into behaviors and actions that you have complete control over. Now, I need to give a quick caveat here. Overcoming a lifetime of validation and approval seeking behavior is not something that is done overnight. Okay, this is gonna take a lot of self-discovery. However, this is the first step, and that is, again, taking back control of your criteria for success. So instead of focusing on did she respond positively or negatively, think about, did I take the action that will get me the result that I want or get me closer to becoming the man that I want to become? So for example, instead of going, she rejected me, or she had a boyfriend and she didn't want to talk to me, I must be unlovable, I must be a piece of shit, whatever goes through your head when you're rejected, instead think, okay, you know what? I approached her even though I felt anxious about it. Go me. That is amazing. I took action that only a very small number of men had the balls to do, and that is amazing. Good on me. All right? Give yourself props for what you have control over. You only have a very small amount of control over whether she's going to be emotionally available or she's going to be interested, okay? And you cannot live a healthy, emotionally grounded life if you keep placing your view of your own value on external influences, on external reactions, on other people's opinions. So another example, let's say you go for the kiss and she rejects your kiss, or she gives you the old cheek. Instead of going, she didn't want to kiss me, I must be absolutely hideous and have a face only your mother could love, instead think, you know what, I was nervous, but I still went for the kiss, and that is fucking amazing. You know, I went for it. I wanted something and I went for it, and that is what a man who has confidence does. Again, your criteria for success should always be based on actions that you have complete control over. So again, I went for the kiss even though I was nervous. That's amazing. Yeah. Or I made a statement of intent even though I wasn't sure how she was going to react, and that made me a bit anxious, but I still did it, and that is amazing. Go me. Or I approached that girl even though she looked like she was gonna be a bitch. I still went for it because that is the action that I have control over. This is how you should judge yourself, not on the reaction of others, but on you taking the action that is within your control and you going for what you want, you taking a step towards becoming the version of yourself that you want to be. Now, where this can really get a lot of guys is once they start getting some validation. So for example, you've got a few good results. Say you've gone out and maybe you've taken a girl home, and all of a sudden, before your criteria for success was, okay, I approached a girl, yeah. Now your criteria for success is, if I don't hook a girl, I'm a piece of shit. Or if I don't take someone home, I'm a piece of shit. I'm not worthy. I'm getting worse, blah, blah, blah. Be wary of this. This is a trap. This is what we call ego protection. I'll go into that in a little bit in deeper detail. But again, this is where a lot of people get really affected by getting validation as well. So once they do start seeing some results, be aware of this. So you go out and you have a really good day, all of a sudden you're like, oh, my criteria for success was down here, like, can I approach? Now it's like, I need to hook X amount of girls in order to feel worthy, or in order to validate the amount of time that I'm putting into this skill set. And it's like, no, mother, go back to, did I approach? Even myself at this point in my journey, after everything I've been through, I still have to make sure I'm not playing these mental gymnastics on myself and set my goal and my criteria for success back completely within my control. For example, did I approach? Did I try to move the interaction forward when I saw an opportunity? Did I try to isolate her when it was time to isolate? Did I go for the kiss? Did I invite her home? Not did she come home with me? Not did she kiss me back? Not did she agree to come with me when I tried to move her around the venue? Did she give me a good reaction on the open? None of that. It is only did I take X action that was in my control and nothing else. If I do find myself falling into that trap of ego protection where it's like, okay, I need to hit X result in order to feel good about myself or validate my skill set, then that's going to absolutely f me up. Even now, I still have to check myself when it comes to this point. So guys, make sure you don't change your criteria for success. Keep it within your control. If you start to get a little bit of validation, don't let it with your head. Now, the next step is to adopt a growth mindset. For example, if you are, say, rejected, you don't want to place a judgment on that experience. You don't want to say, okay, I got rejected, that is bad. Instead, you want to take rejection as feedback. Now, again, you're a human being. There is going to be some rejections you get that are going to hurt. I get it. I'm from Australia. Girls can be pretty rough there at times. Now, if you can adopt this mindset of growth, so instead just see it as feedback and use that feedback in order to improve your next approach and remind yourself that with every no, you get closer to a yes. This is going to be far more motivating when it comes to improving this part of your life. When we're learning cold approach, the early stages are the most difficult because this is when we are the most emotionally volatile, when we've done the least work on ourselves, when we understand ourselves a lot less, when we don't have as much positive reinforcement from others, because this is the period where we're spinning our wheels the most, taking the most action, but getting the least results. So you're getting the least validation during this period. And this is where most people give up because they take rejection so damn seriously. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, one of the biggest indicators that I notice in someone that I know instantly if someone's going to achieve success in this part of their life or not is whether they take rejection personally. When someone comes back to me and they just like they come back to me, they get rejected, but they have a smile on their face, they're like, this was so funny, and they're not taking it personally as a personal attack on themselves, I know instantly they're going to, one, find this process far more fun and enjoyable. They're going to learn a lot quicker because instead of their amygdala getting triggered every time they get rejected and taking it personally and not actually being able to have access to their prefrontal cortex and learn from their mistakes and learn from their interactions, instead they're learning. When someone becomes reactive, emotional, when they're rejected, they take it personally. Number one, big indicator, you, my friend, are seeking validation. You're trying to get good reactions. And because you got a bad reaction, all of a sudden you're having this wild fluctuation in your emotional state. Instead, you want to start looking at everything that happens as feedback. Whether you have a good reaction or a bad reaction, don't attach an assumption or emotion to it. You just need to see it all as feedback and learn from it. With every no, you get closer to a yes. There is one thing you cannot remove from this process, and that is the fact that no matter what you do, this is going to be somewhat of a numbers game. You cannot remove luck from the equation. You just can't. There is going to be a certain amount of volume that you need to go through in order to achieve whatever goal that you have. And to make that process far easier, you, my friend, need to start seeing rejection as feedback, start seeing everything as feedback. That is a growth mentality. Someone who comes back to me when they're rejected and they go, oh, I was rejected because I'm ugly, because I'm insert whatever nationality you want to, because I'm not funny, because I'm uninteresting, because of blah, blah, blah. I instantly go, this person's gonna struggle. But when they come back to me, they're like, okay, this is what I did right. This is where I up. This is what I'm gonna do next time in that same situation. I go, perfect. This person is going to improve much quicker. Again, because they're not looking externally for how they should see themselves. They're not going, this person rejected me. That means that I am not valuable. I am not worthy. I am unlovable, whatever the it is. They go, okay, that was feedback. Let's continue moving towards my goal. Someone who has self-esteem, they have a more solid sense of self. So external circumstances don't shift it as much. But when you're only taking feedback externally and you're going, oh, because this person gave me a bad reaction, that means that piles onto all the evidence that I've picked up throughout my life that I am unworthy, then that's just going to perpetuate your cycle of validation seeking and make you more insecure, more ungrounded emotionally, and more unattractive, which ironically is going to continue feeding this negative feedback loop of lacking results with women and leave you lonely and weed your genetics out of the gene pool, my friend. So don't take it personally. I know it's easier said than done. I understand everything is. However, the more you work on this, the more you pull yourself up for being an emotional little bitch, the easier it's going to become in the long run. I understand everything's easier said than done. And still to this day, sometimes I get a harsh reaction that I go, oh, that one hurt. And it is what it is. But guess what? It's feedback. You let it go. Move on to the next, because understand that there are plenty of other amazing women out there that I can meet. And that is a good segue onto the next point, which is to build an abundance mentality. Now, if you are looking at the world scarcely and you see a woman and you go, she is the only beautiful woman that I could ever get. When a girl gives you a good reaction, you go, I'm instantly in love with her, she's perfect, etc. You're looking at the world through a scarce view. If you're someone who has crippling approach anxiety, you will always be coming into a interaction with a woman and a date, etc. from a scarce mentality, because you do not have access to more women. So you need to work on building an abundant mentality. If you're the kind of person who gets like butthurt or jealous when you hear about someone else having a success with women, probably a good indicator that you're looking at the world from a scarce point of view, because is very abundant. It is incredibly abundant, and it's very easy to get once you have a general idea of what you need to do. And the thing is, it's actually not nearly as hard as you think it is. But if you're someone who's struggled your whole life, of course, it's going to seem like this impossible task. But once you achieve it, you go, oh, okay, it's really easy. Like we have clients in 5 days who will go from having multiple dates in a row of girls just friend zoning them and not being interested to all of a sudden every date they go on, the girl is trying to see them again and trying to sleep with them. Like this is the kind of thing that can happen very fast if you come into things with one, a growth mentality, an open mind, not being a victim, and seeking validation externally too much. I would say the best way to build an abundance mentality is to start practicing cold approach. Now, the best way to do it is to just integrate it as part of your lifestyle, just in your day-to-day life. So for instance, you're going to the grocery store, you see a really beautiful woman, you approach her. You're on the train on the way to work or going into the city, what it might be, you see a beautiful woman, you'll go and approach her, you're not afraid to do it. Great. That is the best way to build an abundant mentality, because you just integrate it into your lifestyle, and that makes each approach that you make a little bit more special too, because it does feel like this more spontaneous experience, right? But if you're someone who is struggling with approach anxiety, which most men are, then at first you're going to have to set time aside every single week in order to practice cold approach. You go to a place with high foot traffic and you practice approaching girls that you find attractive over and over again until you start feeling comfortable with the practice. Now, luckily, the more momentum, social momentum you build, the easier it becomes, and you will get to a point where approach anxiety is almost barely even noticeable. Now, it never fully goes away, and you will have days where it's going to be more extreme than others, and that's totally fine. That's part of being human. It's part of cold approach, part of the experience. Enjoy it, my friend. Embrace it. This is why it's such a great endeavor of self-development. But again, at first, you're going to have to set time aside to practice cold approach over and over again until you start getting comfortable with it. And then the more comfortable you become with cold approach, just the actual act of becoming more comfortable interacting with a woman that you're attracted to is, funny enough, going to just on its own, just by default, make it more likely for you to have success with that woman. You just being more comfortable in your own skin in social interactions is going to make you more just overall likable and more likely to have success just on its own. That's without formal coaching. And a lot of guys might find that enough to give them the ability to approach enough to then meet a partner, get some results and hit the goals that they want. But again, there is a lot of men out there who have a lot more, say, lacking in social skills, or they have a lot more to learn and need formal coaching, and that's totally understandable. I needed coaching myself. I am one of those people. So did Alex, and every single guy I know who got very good at cold approach got some form of coaching. So there's nothing to be ashamed of if you are someone who is really struggling in this part of your life. I certainly was a bit of a slow learner when it came to this because I had low self-esteem and a lot of poor social skills when I first started this, but now I live a fantastic life. If you just watch our compilation when you jump on our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see the kind of life that myself and Alex live. Very different to how things looked 10 years ago when I first started, when I was very shy and anxious and I could barely hold a conversation, and I had girls running away from me when I was approaching them because they were so uncomfortable, because I was so uncomfortable in my own skin. But again, I did take it very personally when I first started, and there was many times that I felt like crying, and I have gone home after a tough night and shed a couple of tears, and that is completely fine. If you find yourself in that situation, you are more emotionally volatile, it's okay. The first step is understanding where you are and what you need to do in order to get to the next step. What separates the guys who get success and don't are the ones who are willing to take those steps and actually put their ego aside. Now, to finish off this point, just because I've gone on a little bit of a rant, the more girls you approach and the more comfortable you get interacting with new people and bringing new people into your life, the more abundant you're going to feel, and the less you're going to place importance on each single individual that you meet. And over time, you will establish more of an abundant mindset. And the better you get at cold approach, the more abundance you will just achieve in general. Funny enough, the more you cold approach in general, the more rejection you deal with, the less you're going to be affected by rejection and the less validation seeking you're going to be in general as well. I'm going to get into this in more detail in my next point. Now, the next point I want to make, I want you to set clear standards for yourself. I don't want you to be enamored by the beauty of the women that you're talking to. A lot of guys really do up because they're just trying to just suck validation from the girls that they're meeting. They're like, please like me, please tell me I'm good enough. If a girl of your caliber could just give me just a drip feed of validation, I'll finally feel worthy. It's like, bro, look at her as a human being. And one of the exercises that we give our clients that can sometimes help them look at these women as more of a human being and really assess whether they do meet his standards is to write down 10 qualities that are non-physical that they want in the women that they're meeting. And then when they're out there meeting women, cold approaching women, going on dates, they will start to assess these women that they're meeting, whether these girls have the qualities that they're looking for. And again, they're non-physical qualities. Have this list in your head. I'll list off a few examples for me. I want someone who has hobbies that aren't her going on TikTok or sitting on Netflix. I want actual hobbies, like things that she's interested in, like, I don't know, botany or ornithology or equestrian, whatever the it might be, right? I want her to have a hobby that she's interested in. I want her to be interested in learning and growing and expanding her mind and her understanding of the universe. She reads books and she has a curiosity mindset just about the world around her. She needs to be highly nurturing. She needs to have a gentle personality that has the desire to nurture and bring up those around her. She needs to be a little bit of a nerd and have a dark sense of humor. If she doesn't have a really up sense of humor and she can't handle me saying really messed up shit sometimes, then we're not gonna get along. Because I'll tell you what, man, I can't share my true sense of humor on YouTube because lately YouTube has not been our friend. In fact, they've been kind of shadow banning our videos lately. It's ever since we posted the compilation video, YouTube has been actually throttling all of our videos. So we'll have a good view time and a good click-through rate, but the algorithm just isn't pushing it. So I can't really show too much of my sense of humor here because YouTube already is not our biggest fan, if you haven't noticed. So if you want to support us and help us, make sure to click the little bell icon so you get notified when we do release videos, because most people aren't going to be notified because, again, we are being throttled a little bit when it comes to our views. So yeah, just letting you know. I've gone on a bit of a rant there, but these are qualities that I want in the girls that I'm meeting. I also don't want her to be highly validation seeking. So if she posts a lot on social media and stuff, just instant no-no for me. Validation seeking in itself, like looking externally as to how you should view your own self-worth, is actually a bit more of a feminine trait. So I will actually talk about this at a later date in terms of female validation seeking, but if a woman is posting a lot on social media, especially photos that are designed to elicit reaction from men, this is a massive red flag for me. And I just don't like girls who want to spend all their time on social media or scroll through their phone. I want a girl who's present with me, who wants to explore the world, who wants to be here with me. So these are all traits that I'm looking for in women, and during my dates, I will ask questions that will allow me to, one, assess whether they have those traits, and number two, if they express something that might insinuate that she lacks one of these traits that I'm looking for, or these qualities that I'm looking for, I will challenge her on that and get her to qualify herself and see if she actually does meet that standard or not. I will link my challenging video here. Let's see if I remember to do this. I will link the challenging video right here. Enjoy. That one teaches you how to actually challenge girls and get them to chase your validation a little bit. If you naturally just have this general idea about the qualities that you want, you're naturally less likely to start chasing her validation and actually assess her for whether she's going to be a good partner for you. So that's a very simple strategy you can use in order to shift your focus from trying to get her to like you, get her to like you, get her to like please like me, please like me, please like me. If I can have sex with someone who looks half as good as you, my life will be like 50% better. Please, please like me, please like me, please show me that I'm worthy. Instead, you're coming from a place of let's see if we like each other. And that is just far more likely to net you the result that you want, my friend. Okay, so watch out for that. Make sure to assess the women that you're meeting. This is a great strategy to help you decrease the likelihood that you're going to seek her validation. Now, one caveat I want to make about this point is some guys have this just really obscene level of entitlement and think that they are just entitled to female attention, etc. You'll have some guy who's like 50 kilos overweight, neckbeard, he's unkempt, he lives in his mother's basement, he lacks all drive and social skills, barely worked on himself, and all of a sudden he's like, I need to have a girl who has 1 million followers on Instagram and she needs to be a supermodel. It's like, you need to be realistic when it comes to having your standards. It might take you being quite honest with yourself at the same time and be like, am I actually a person who is worthy of this caliber of woman? Now, I understand that this video is about raising your self-esteem because the majority of men so there's two places people can come from, right? The majority of men are coming from the place of they have lower self-esteem and low entitlement. They actually have a skewed view of themselves, and their skewed view of themselves is worse than what true reality is. So they think that they are less valuable than they are in objective reality. But then there's a small number of men who view their value as higher than it actually is in reality. And you kind of have to bring them down a little bit so they can be more socially aware and socially cued in and have an easier time. And they're not attracting women because they're not able to look at themselves objectively and be like, okay, here are my flaws. See, the guys who come from here, the place where they actually have a lower view of themselves than what they objectively are, they do actually have an easier time seeing their flaws and making improvements. And this is the vast majority of men. The vast majority of men are coming from this place of they see themselves as worse than they actually are in reality, right? That is the majority. But there is this small minority of men who are highly entitled. They get incredibly offended by women not giving them attention, even though they haven't done anything to deserve that attention and they haven't worked on themselves at all, and they're incredibly entitled. Now, if you're this guy, yeah, you might want to be aware of that. But again, the likelihood of that is low. The majority of men are coming from this place of them having a lower view of themselves. But I just needed to make that caveat because I do see it sometimes, and yeah, it's this like disconnect that some dudes have, and it's like, bruh, take a look at yourself. But anyways, I say it with love. We're all gonna make it, bruh. The next step, and this is the hardest step for most guys, is to destroy your ego. So for a lot of guys, they have a far larger ego than they realize. Now, our ego is created to help protect ourselves, and it's essentially built upon a certain identity that we are clinging onto and want the world to validate to us. So for example, a lot of guys who say struggled with women when they were younger, they cling to an identity of like, I'm desirable now, I'm desirable now, I'm desirable now. And they have a really tough time being given evidence that they're not that guy, because they are still looking externally for that validation, but at the same time they've built this ego around like, I am that guy now, I am the guy who's desirable. So these guys will actually find themselves having a huge amount of approach anxiety, and we call this ego protection, because you're trying to protect your ego. Now, for every man, whether you have a huge ego or not, going through the process of becoming desensitized to rejection is such an important skill to learn, because for any endeavor, if you don't learn to fail, then you're never going to achieve greatness. You just can't. Any man who has achieved any kind of greatness has failed, and probably failed a lot. And I will tell you, any person who gets great with women has also been rejected by more women than most men will ever have to deal with in their lives. So when I say destroy your ego, what I mean is you need to go out and you need to get rejected a lot. You need to go out with the goal of being rejected. Whether you go out during the day, at night, whatever you're comfortable with, however you want to do this, you need to go out with the goal of being rejected. And I mean, you need to try to get rejected. And you can only stop this exercise. For some guys, it might take one night for their ego to be destroyed, and they're all of a sudden they're cured, they're good to go. But some guys can take a month. Some guys might be holding on to their ego so tightly it takes a few months to get over this. They need to go through a lot of rejection. But for most, it might take a couple of days to a week, and then all of a sudden they're free for a while, and then the ego starts to creep back again. This is what happens to most people. The ego protection comes back and back, and it usually happens when they start to get some results, which I talked about earlier, how some guys, when they start to see some results, they get a bit of external validation. All of a sudden, they're afraid to lose that validation they got, because they become attached to that identity. They're like, I got some good reactions, I had some I got some girls liking me. I'm really afraid of losing that identity because I'm attached to the identity of being that guy. I finally feel like that guy who has the results, who has the women, who is desirable, and now I have to go out and get rejected and lose that. That I'm never approaching another woman again, right? Like, that is what some guys will go through. And it's like, if you find yourself after getting a bit of results, you start getting hectic approach anxiety again, good indicator you're having a bit of ego protection. You need to go out and destroy it. So you need to go out and get rejected a bunch. Because think about it this way, true self-esteem is not swayed by whether someone reacts good to you or not. That's true self-esteem. But ego is. So if you want to identify whether your newfound sense of confidence is coming from ego or self-esteem, get rejected, and that will give you an indicator whether you're coming from a place of ego or high self-esteem, my friend. So this is a big one for a lot of guys, heaps of guys. So again, what you want to do, go out, day or night, get rejected a bunch. Now, you know that you've completed this exercise properly because you will wake up one day and you will feel almost like a weight has been taken off your shoulders. This weight of the ego, of your need to perpetuate a certain identity onto the world and gain that identity back from everyone you're talking to, essentially trying to micromanage everyone around you all the time to try and elicit a certain reaction from everyone, becomes so exhausting for you. It's like holding onto a weight all the time. And once you become immune to rejection, life becomes so much easier, and interacting socially is a much more enjoyable experience. And funny enough, you're far more likely to get positive reactions, to attract women, when you are coming from this place of lacking an ego and having this more light energy. And that's how I would describe it. It's like, you know how you talk to some people and they have very heavy energy and very light energy? And you might have even felt it yourself. Some days when you feel really good, you have really light energy. It's very easy for you to just express and be around people. But some days you have a very heavy energy. This heavy energy usually is your ego. It's your desire to elicit certain reactions from people and try to suck validation from others. Once you wake up and you feel like that weight has been lifted off your shoulders, like this heavy burden you've been holding on to has been lifted off, finally, this is a good indicator that you've overcome your ego, and you're now going to find it much easier to deal with a bit of rejection. Because again, rejection is going to be inevitable no matter what you do, no matter how good you get at this shit. So get used to it, my friend. I say it with love. And the ego will come back from time to time, I promise you. The problem with what we're doing here, and the problem with if you're someone who wants to have success with women, is that it is inevitable that once you do start to see some success with women, you will grow certain amount of ego. It is normal. You're a human being. You're a man. And when you hook up with a couple of girls, you're like, I am the man. But unfortunately, that can create anxiety in us because we want to continue feeling like the man, and we don't want anything to make us not feel like the man. So some guys will even just settle with one of the girls that they've hooked up with because they're just too afraid to continue approaching, and they're just like, it's good, I found one who will do, I will just settle. Whereas in reality, you could have continued and found one that you liked more. Now, again, if you meet a girl and you really love her and you want to stay with her, yeah, great. But just be aware of your own tendencies and be aware of your own desire for validation and how your ego is getting in the way of your ability to connect with others. The best way to identify whether your ego is affecting your ability to interact with people is when you go into interactions. If you come out of a social interaction, say you approach a girl, and if you come out of that interaction and you feel like your energy has been drained, that's a great indicator that you're putting on a mask. So you're trying to elicit certain reactions from girls, right? You're putting on a mask, you're becoming a bit of a social chameleon, you're vying for approval, you're trying to suck validation from girls. That is a great indicator. If you're losing energy in social environments, you're being a people pleaser most likely, you're trying to gain validation, you have an ego that is trying to elicit certain reactions from people because it wants to perpetuate a certain identity of whatever it is, like I am valuable, I have social status, I am lovable, I am worthy, whatever the it might be, right? Everyone's different. I'm just being generalist when I'm talking about this. If you go into interactions and you find yourself invigorated and you have more energy after a social interaction, that's a good indicator that you don't have an ego getting involved. And ironically, if you do find yourself invigorated and energized after interactions, you most likely find it quite easy to make friends and get along with people, and you're probably a naturally more attractive person to women. So again, you want to remove this mask. The more you practice the next point I'm going to make, the easier it's going to be to come out of interactions with more energy and remove your ego. That there is destroying your ego and overcoming ego protection, getting rejected a lot. Now, the final point I want to talk about is practicing authenticity. This here is going to make social environments, make approaching girls, expressing yourself a way more enjoyable experience. And the thing is, a lot of men almost don't even know how to be themselves. Because when I say practicing authenticity and being more yourself, I don't mean being the people-pleasing, supplicating version of yourself. I mean the most authentic version of yourself. However, even when we are being our most authentic, our ultimate version of ourselves, sometimes we are going to feel low self-esteem. Sometimes we are going to feel the need for a bit of validation, and that's okay. Acceptance is part of becoming a man. No woman wants the perfect man. They don't, because no one's perfect. But they want someone who's completely secure in himself. Even when he's ironically not feeling secure, he's okay with it. Acceptance is part of having confidence. Now, again, that's not accepting and being like, I don't need to work on myself. Ben told me I don't need to work on myself. I can just be lazy, sit at home, eat Cheetos, jack off to midget. That's all I need to do now. It's all good. No, mother. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is that acceptance is part of becoming a highly authentic version of yourself, and accepting the times that you're not feeling super charismatic, super amazing is totally fine. And acceptance is part of that process. So let's get into how you're going to practice becoming more authentic. When I say authenticity, when I say being authentic, I mean being unapologetically yourself. I mean you being unafraid to say what you think and express your sense of humor, and not say things in order to impress others, but because you want to say it. Say what you want to say, express what you want to express, and show your sense of humor, and not be afraid of offending, not be afraid of building rapport with people all the time. You being more authentically yourself, again, as I spoke about earlier, is ironically, even though some people aren't going to resonate with you, which is fine, this is what's going to be most likely to have you have the result that you want with women. Like, this is more likely to make you magnetic to women. Some people aren't going to like you, and that's fine, but some people are going to love you. And this is a way you can remove the people who aren't meant to be in your life easily and attract the people who are meant to be in your life. Because no matter who you are, you can't attract everyone. And if you are able to do that, then you're a psychopath, because psychopaths are the best social chameleons out there. And only 1% of the population is a psychopath. So you, my friend, could be the 1 in 100. And if you are, then enjoy being a social chameleon. Enjoy you, but the vast majority of the people watching this video are not going to be psychopathic, which means you're not going to be able to become the perfect social chameleon. You can't attract everyone, but what you can do is become the most authentic and expressive version of yourself, which is what's going to net you the highest likelihood of getting the result you want, which is attracting women into your life. You're going to be a far more attractive version of yourself if you can be more authentic. We often think, I need to fit in, I need to be more normal, normal, quote unquote normal. Who tells you what normal is? That. Watch some of the most charismatic people on the planet. They would not probably be what you consider normal, but they also tend to probably be the people who are most attractive to women. I digress. Let's get into it. How do you actually start expressing yourself authentically? This is a reasonably large topic, and I'm only going to be able to touch the surface of this right now because this has been a long video and you're probably sick of watching my face, so I apologize you had to look at it for so long. The first step is to start noticing when you are filtering yourself. Say you're running out of things to say. This is a good indicator that you're filtering yourself, right? So lower the bar for the quality of things that need to come out of your mouth. Most people, they put a high standard on what they say in order to be liked by everyone. But the thing is, this makes them less authentic because they only express a very small amount of what they want to express. It makes them less expressive, makes them more stifled, makes them less, ironically, likable. So lower the bar for what comes out of your mouth, first of all. Number two is don't be afraid to tell people what you actually think. I'm not saying in a way that is going to be, say, jarring or offensive, right? Like if you disagree with someone, don't say it in order to attack someone, but don't be afraid to express what you genuinely think as well, just as a matter of fact. It's okay to tell people what you think. The next time you think of something really up to say, like as a joke, like, and I'm not talking about at your family dinner, you probably don't want to make the anal joke in front of your mum, right? Like you're probably not going to do that. So obviously use your brain when I say this, but you're in an environment with a reasonable level of anonymity, right? Like a nightclub or you're meeting a new person out on the street. The next time you notice yourself filtering a joke or you're like, oh, can I say that? Say it. Like the next time you think, oh, should I say that? I'm not really, do it. Say it. Because even if they don't react well, it's what you genuinely thought. And the more you learn that it's okay to be yourself, to express yourself, the more evidence you build to the fact that the world is actually a pretty safe place and you're gonna be okay. You're also gonna have really cool experiences when you say something really up or when you say something that you find funny or you express yourself authentically and people go, whoa, and they're just drawn to you magnetically. This is how you become more magnetic as a human being. And it also creates so much self-trust. Like we were talking earlier, right at the start of the video, about building self-trust. This is how you build self-trust in a social environment. You no longer filter yourself, you just express and just be okay with the fact that sometimes you're going to embarrass yourself and accept that you're a human being. You know how I was talking about acceptance? This is part of acceptance. Accept that. Now, if you notice yourself saying really munted things all the time, you might be one of those people who's coming from a place of lower levels of social calibration, and maybe you actually need to calibrate. But the vast majority of population, just like how I was talking about earlier, how the vast majority of the population have a lower view of themselves than what is objective reality, the vast majority of the population are more filter themselves and overjudge what they say than they should. There is a small number of the population who are going to be less calibrated and need to learn to actually be less expressive, but the vast majority have to learn to be more expressive. And you are probably in this range of people because the people who find it easier to express themselves or who are a little too expressive actually tend to naturally be a little bit better with women because they're a bit more brazen and they will find themselves having success from time to time, even though they'll find themselves offending people a little too often. But that is probably an unnecessary point to make, but I just want you to be aware of that the vast majority of people are going to be less expressive than they're actually allowed to be. Give yourself permission to express yourself more authentically. Give yourself permission to offend people from time to time. Give yourself permission to be embarrassing from time to time. And also, this is more likely to start building confidence in yourself and remind yourself the world is a safe place. And you'll notice over time, the more you express yourself authentically, the more liberated you're gonna find social environments. It's liberating, just expressing yourself, saying what you wanna say. This is why I've always loved going out at night, because you have a little bit more anonymity and you can say some really shit. You can just with people, say what you want, do what you want, and you have a level of freedom. And I love that level of social freedom you can have in bars, nightclubs, etc. I find it so fun. It's liberating for me because it was something I never got to experience when I was younger because I was so stifled as a young adult. Enjoy that. Also understand that the more you practice cold approach, the more social momentum you build, the more comfortable you're going to be in your own shoes in social environments too. So this is also another reason why I love cold approach as a process of self-development because, and I know I keep saying it, but because you will build a lot of comfort in social environments and you will learn over time naturally to just express yourself in a more authentic manner the more you do it. So this is why building what we call social momentum is so important. If you practice cold approach every single week, you practice meeting a new person, multiple new people every single week for the next 6 months, you're going to be feeling like a completely different person in 6 months' time. In a year's time, even more. The more you practice cold approach, the faster you're going to get better at it, but also the more social momentum you're going to build quicker. So you're going to feel more comfortable with meeting new people. You're going to feel more authentically expressive as well, which is why I love cold approach. It is amazing as a tool to be more authentic. Momentum is something that isn't going to last forever. You're going to have times when you can immerse yourself with cold approach and there's going to be times where you have to take time off. So you also need to give yourself exercises you can use in order to build that authenticity quicker, which is what I'm going to give you right now as well. So one exercise we give our clients is for them to just express how they feel when they meet girls. If they're really stifled, to express how they genuinely feel, even if it's not technically the correct thing to do, if it's not technically attractive, that's okay as long as they're being honest. So for example, you go up to a girl and you're just like, hey, listen, like I'm honestly not feeling super social right now. I feel really stifled. I don't really know what to say to you because your beauty is kind of stifling me and I'm intimidated by you and I really care about what you think about me. And yeah, I just wanted to let you know that, right? That's you being really honest. We've even gone to the point where we have clients go up to girls and say, excuse me, I just wanted to let you know that I'm currently taking a dating boot camp to improve my social skills in my dating life because I feel like I haven't achieved the goals that I want with women and I don't feel desirable and I'm trying to achieve that, right? Like we have made guys do some pretty extreme levels of radical honesty on some of our programs in order to just unstifle them and remind them, show them, give them evidence that the world is going to be far more forgiving than they realize. It always is. A lot of the time, guys will be like, feel so much resistance because their ego is so big, they're like, oh, there is no way I can say that to a girl. Like I cannot be that vulnerable. But then they do it and they're like, oh my God, I'm free. Another great exercise you can do with your friends is just play the dare game, the open game. So you just say you flip a coin with a friend, whoever calls the coin gets to give the other friend a up approach they need to make. Like, so for example, like go up to a girl and tell her she has exquisite breasts or something like this. Really like extreme approaches. And this will get you way out of your head and make you way more expressive. Like we've had clients where we've made them approach girls and be like, excuse me, do you have daddy issues? And things like this. Like these are the kind of opens that they'll use. And this helps them get out of their heads and realize, oh, I can say what I want. Like the world is forgiving. Don't get me wrong, every now and then you're going to offend someone, but guess what? That's just part of life. That's just how it is. Like you will offend someone from time to time. And I've offended plenty of people in my life and Alex is offended even more because he goes really hard with his sense of humor. His sense of humor is dark, man. That's why we get along so well. Love that He's great. But again, he will push boundaries because he finds that entertaining and that's part of his personality. And I respect the out of him for that. And that also makes him highly attractive as well. Makes him magnetic. I once saw him go up to a girl. We had a mate talking to this chick. And Alex is like, oh, that she's so hot. I need to talk. I need to hook her. That. I'm sorry, bro. This mate's chatting to her and he's like he's half getting good responses from it. Anyways, Alex goes up and within 30 seconds to a minute of talking to her, he tells her, I bet you have a flappy pussy. Now, is that in the correct thing to do? Absolutely not. That is a terrible thing to say in terms of on the scheme of things, but Alex, as the skilled social wizard that he is, was pretty sure he could get away with it because he'd already kind of read the archetype of this girl and her buying temperature before jumping into the interaction. And this girl just like all of a sudden she's talking to our friend and all of a sudden she goes bam onto Alex and she just everyone else around just disappeared and she would not look at anyone else. She was on Alex. She's like, what the makes you say that? And he's just like giving her shit and all of a sudden he's making out with her and he pulls her and it's like, that is impressive. Another one, he opens a girl, just screams out gangbang to her. I think I've told this story before, but he just screams out gangbang to her. Her friend starts yelling at him like, that's misogynistic, that's up. Anyways, our client at the time, who was on his final day of program, jumps in and just starts a dance off with this girl. Totally pattern interrupts this girl, the friend all of a sudden she's like, haha, dance off, ha. So our client's there helping with the dance off with this friend while Alex is talking to this other girl who he just screamed gangbang to, and all of a sudden 10 minutes later, he's somehow got her back to the apartment. Now again, does this happen all the time? No, but this just shows how he is not afraid to express himself authentically. Does this mean you need to go out there and scream gangbang at people? Absolutely not. If that is not your sense of humor, do not do that. I have a much more mild sense of humor, to be honest. That is crazy, all right? But I still have a pretty dark sense of humor. I will express it from time to time, but I'm just using these examples because they're extreme examples. And that is what can make you magnetic to some people. But again, because of that, he also offends far more people than I do as well. So be aware of that. If you have a very dark, like really hectically dark sense of humor, you're probably going to offend some people too. And even if you don't, you're still going to offend some people. Give yourself permission to do that, my friend. That is the opening game. So again, stop filtering yourself, practice radical honesty, and the opening game, really good ways of doing this. Now, another way we help clients get through this ego trap and express themselves more authentically is through a process we call timeline shifting. And this is where we really change our clients' view of reality. And this is honestly the fastest way I've seen clients go from stifled, unable to express themselves to all of a sudden they are doing crazy things. Like I watched one client go from having essentially no experience with women to having a rotation of hot girls by day 5. It's crazy. You can see the testimonial. You can ask me for it. I will link you the testimonial in our Facebook group. If you're in our Facebook group, I will link it to you. You can watch it. We have footage. It's insane. Anyways, this is the kind of stuff that does happen when we help our clients with the process of timeline shifting. Everyone learns at a different pace, but again, this is the fastest way I've seen for clients to build that like bulletproof confidence, build that self-trust, overcome their desire for validation, and start expressing themselves more authentically. By far the fastest way. I will talk further on that on another video. This has been way too long. I've ranted at you for far too long, my friend. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I love you. Hopefully I remember to link the videos that I talked about earlier, but if I didn't, just comment and I will link it in the comments if you remind me. If I didn't do it. It just depends on how good my memory is that day. So my friend, that is validation seeking. That is why you seek validation, how it messes with your dating life, and how you can get over it and start being a more authentic, expressive version of yourself and detach yourself from this insidious mindset that is destroying your results with women. So if you're still here, I'm gonna give you a quick CTA. If you're looking for coaching and you wanna work with myself and Alex, you can click the link in the description and jump on a free consultation call with myself, Alex, or one of our team members. Whether you're interested in our live 5-day immersion programs, which we run all around the world, you've probably seen our testimonials for them, or for our Unleashed online mentorship program where we coach clients online, and obviously they have lifetime access to our video course, Unleashed, which is also the most comprehensive course out there on how to become successful with women and also become the most attractive, expressive, charismatic version of yourself. So my friend, thank you for watching. If you haven't joined the free Facebook group, make sure to do that. Love you. See you in the next video, and I am gonna eat some protein.